Welcome to Who's That Pokemon, the most in-depth Pokemon anime rewatch podcast on the entire internet. If you didn't know, this is a retrospective look back on the Pokemon anime series, episode by episode from the very beginning. The show has been airing for over 20 years now and has over 1,000 episodes, yet it seems to get neglected by Pokemon fans, so I thought it was about time it got a podcast entirely dedicated to it. The first episode today is the 23rd episode of the Indigo League series titled The Tower of Terror. The Japanese title is Capture at the Pokemon Tower. So a couple of bits of trivia to do with the episode title today. First up is that this episode's English title is a reference to the Tower of Terror theme park ride. That one seems, that was a pretty obvious one. The second one though is, I'd say, far more interesting. This episode was actually temporarily banned from re-airing on Kids WB after the September 11 attacks due to the title. It was actually later put back into circulation, so it was kind of like Tentacool and Tentacruel. It was just a temporary sort of hiatus for re-airing this episode, I guess, due to the sensitivity to do with the attacks. There are actually claims on the internet that due to this, Kids WB refused to give the tape to Cartoon Network for them to air this episode in 2002, but they've apparently since conceded the rights to air it because it has aired, but I don't think there's any actual proof of this, so I'm reluctant to just agree with a random piece of hearsay on the internet, especially when it comes to the Pokemon series. There's a lot of just stuff pulled out of thin air when it comes to this. This episode first aired in Japan on September 2, 1997, and in the United States on October 7, 1998. On this day in Pokemon history for the Japanese air date, we have nothing of note, but for the American air date, we have Black 2 and White 2 being released in the US in 2012, which, while I didn't like these as much as Black and White, which I think I'm in the minority there. I think a lot of people actually believe that Black 2 and White 2 are better. I did really enjoy them, and up until Sword and Shield, I'd say Black 2 and White 2 were the last games I really enjoyed, because XY, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, and the Gen 7 stuff, none of it really hit that mark, but Black 2 and White 2 was, especially because it was a sequel, it was something so, I guess, new and exciting and innovative, I guess, for the Pokemon franchise. Obviously, it's nothing new as a whole for video games, but for Pokemon, it was pretty new, and yeah, I really dug that. On this day, it's also Rikako Aikawa's birthday. She is a Japanese voice actress. You probably could have guessed that, but she has basically, she took on the role of a lot of different of the actual Pokemon. She probably most famously is Ash's Squirtle. She also did Butterfree, Krabby, Psyduck. So yeah, a lot of iconic Pokemon from Gen 1. The Imdb rating for this episode was an 8.1. The screenplay was written by Hideki Sonoda. This is the 4th episode Sonoda has written, and his highest rated episode so far. He last wrote Beauty and the Beach, which is the lowest rated episode so far, so it's a pretty big turnaround from episode to episode for Sonoda. The director here is Toshiaki Suzuki. This is Suzuki's 5th episode, and he's reuniting with Sonoda as they both worked on Beauty and the Beach, so a big return to form for both of them, I would say, after Beauty and the Beach. Was a bit of a stinker both by the IMDb rating and I guess by my personal rating. We have no human character debuts in this episode, however we do have the on-screen debut of Haunter. Obviously Gengar and Ghastly have appeared before. Ghastly appeared pretty recently in The Ghost of Maiden's Peak, and Gengar actually appeared in the very first episode, so Haunter making its debut now rounds out that entire line. And the Who's That Pokemon for this episode is Gengar, strangely enough. I thought this was a little bit random. Haunter is actually the Who's That Pokemon for the next episode, but I think it would have made more sense to have Haunter be the Who's That Pokemon here and then have Kadabra be the Who's That Pokemon in the next episode, because Gengar is it was kind of obvious. You would assume Gengar would get its own episode, especially with the limited amount of Pokemon that it had to deal with. So yeah, I guess maybe it's the hindsight coming in, but yeah, I would have thought Gengar would have got the Who's That Pokemon treater much later on. So with all of that said, let's jump into the episode summary and discussion. So after the events of the previous episode, Ash and his friends head to Lavender Town so Ash can catch a ghost-type Pokemon to use against Sabrina. As they're hiking, the fog intensifies and Brock suggests that everyone should hold hands. Ash and Misty link up, but Brock cannot find them. Brock reaches towards Ash's hands, but mistakenly grabs Pikachu's tail and is shocked with a Thunder Shock. Ash attempts to alleviate everyone's fears, but his skull mask only angers everyone and Pikachu intentionally shocks him. So not much to mention here off the bat, except that when the narrator is sort of recapping the previous events, he pronounces saffron really weird in the opening. He sort of pronounces it like saffron, which I hadn't noticed him saying it previously. So yeah, it really stood out to me when he said it here. And it goes against like the way everybody else says it. And it won't be the last time he pronounces it that way. The group then arrives in Lavender Town and reaches the Pokemon Tower, and by this time it is dark outside. Misty and Brock are scared by the tower and want Ash to go in alone. Pikachu decides to take a quick nap and Ash follows suit, getting out his sleeping bag, but Misty wakes them up by smacking a gong. Meanwhile, Team Rocket watches them through one of the tower's windows. James runs off but falls through a hole in the floor. Meowth then notices a closet door open nearby, revealing a Ghastly, which scares him. Meowth points at Ghastly, but it disappears before Jessie is able to see it. Ghastly reappears over Jessie's face, mimicking Jessie's speech, and Meowth scratches Jessie. Jessie retaliates, angrily knocking Meowth into the hole with James, using a hammer by the way. Jessie soon joins James and Meowth after looking at herself in a mirror and screaming at the sight of Ghastly. Ash and his friends hear the screams from outside as Team Rocket falls through several floors. Team Rocket gets back up, but Ghastly scares them again, knocking them out.
It was there!
Don't tell me you're seeing things again.
Get away! It slipped.
You mangy alley cat, you numbskull, you've ruined my beautiful face!
I've always kind of hated that we never really get a chance to give Lavender Town a proper visit in the anime. We see it from a brief distance and then immediately smash cut to the Pokemon Tower here. We don't actually get to spend like a proper moment in the town, which, I don't know, it kind of sucks, especially for a town that became such an iconic place in Pokemon like Lavender Town. It really sucks that we just kind of go to the Pokemon Tower and that's it, and it's not even the same sort of tower from the games. This is the only chance we get to go to Lavender Town too, which, like, it's a double kick in the guts. When Ash returns to Kanto in the Battle Frontier saga, we find out that the Battle Dome is located south of it. However, to my knowledge, we never actually get to see the town again, which, yeah, as I said, it kind of sucks, especially because of the status that that Lavender Town eventually gained. And again, going back to something I sort of spoke about quite a bit in the last episode, they make Lavender Town look like a massive sprawling city here when they view it from a distance, which, like, the anime was really against showing towns as anything other than a gigantic metropolis at this point, which is kind of weird because, like, Lavender Town is anything but. I can sort of get it for all of the other towns so far, but Lavender Town really is not that type of town in Kanto. It's like, out of all of them, that's definitely the one that probably shouldn't be depicted as that, I guess, alongside Cinnabar Island. That probably shouldn't be depicted that way either. I also have to touch on Jessie smashing Meowth with a hammer here. That's the second time in the past 3 episodes where she's assaulted a Pokemon with a hammer. So she's got some form here now, Jessie. Apparently that's her go-to when she's angry at a Pokemon. And finally, there is a dub edit here. In the dub, when Jessie falls onto James and Meowth, James tells her that the place is dangerous. But in the original Japanese version, James instead remarks that Jessie is heavy. So I guess 4Kids probably wanted to steer clear of a fat joke there. That's the only reason I could probably see for them changing that. So as Ash, Misty and Brock enter the tower, the door closes on its own, putting them in darkness. Ash sends out Charmander to light the room with a flamethrower, though the Pokemon quickly tires out. Brock then finds a candle and Charmander uses flamethrower to light the candle, accidentally burning Brock in the process. Ash and his friends find a hole in the floor and hear strange noises echoing as they explore. In another portion of the tower, Haunter and Gengar are watching TV, laughing at a comedy show broadcast. Ghastly then comes into the room and they all laugh.
This place is creepy. Maybe we should come back tomorrow when it's daylight.
Have you ever heard of a ghost that comes out during the day?
Look, I found a candle.
All right, Charmander, light up that candle for us.
Light the candle, not me!
So the main thing I wanted to point out here in this scene is Brock, when he gets burned by Charmander, he really lashes out at Charmander for lighting him on fire, which I guess when you put it that way, it seems kind of reasonable, but it also seems kind of out of character for Brock. He, from what we know of him, even in the short time we've had him on the show so far, we know that he's really compassionate towards Pokemon, and to me, I would expect him to react sort of, I guess, in a more mild manner than that. Especially in like later seasons, I guess, when they've sort of fully understood the character of Brock. It really seems like he would just take that in his stride in later seasons, but he really lashes out at Charmander, and I would expect that from maybe like Ash, but not from Brock. I also think that Haunter and Gengar watching TV is just, pretty strange. It's weird to see a Pokemon watching TV, two Pokemon watching TV, and it's just so strange. After Ash and his friends enter a larger room, the lights suddenly turn on, revealing a dining room with a fully set table. Ash's attention turns to a dangling rope with an instructional note attached. He quickly runs up and pulls it, which releases confetti and a welcome sign. Suddenly, the glassware and chairs begin to levitate. Brock gets thrown around in a chair while Pikachu and Charmander find themselves on platters. Ash and Misty run out of the room. Brock and the Pokemon soon flee after. The tableware and chairs reset and the ghost Pokemon reappear, laughing at their mischief. Again, not too much to touch on here in this moment, except for when they sort of come in and Ash gets the welcome sign. The writing on the welcome banner is extremely low res for some reason, which, I couldn't figure out whether if it was something to do with sort of the version that Netflix has, maybe it's something to do with sort of upscaling the quality or something, or whether it was maybe on 4Kids' part because they obviously would have paint edited whatever it said in Japanese. So I'm not really sure where the low quality comes from, so I'm not really sure who to put the blame on, but it actually stands out quite a bit. Outside, Misty and Brock refuse to re-enter the tower. As a result, Ash goes back in with only his Pokemon. Stopping in front of the hole Team Rocket created earlier, Ash checks his Pokédex for more details, and it reveals that ghost Pokemon are still shrouded in mystery. Ash hears commotion from the floor beneath them and thinks that Pokemon are down there. He orders Pikachu and Charmander to attack, but this just creates a fire. Ash throws a Pokeball, but it hits Jessie in the face. Jessie gets angry as her hair catches fire. She then runs around creating a fireball from Ash's dew, but it soon disappears, much to his disappointment.
Time for us to go get him! Pikachu, electric attack!
Pika.
Charmander, flamethrower now! Hey, it's working! Go, Pokeball!
So again, I don't have a whole lot to say about this segment, just that Ash blindly attacking Team Rocket while thinking they're ghost Pokemon is genuinely hilarious. One thing that I really have rediscovered going back through the anime is just how damn funny it is. Like, it really does hit the mark more often than not, I would say. Suddenly, Pikachu spots Haunter behind Ash and freaks out, but Ash misses it. Haunter then appears in front of him and spooks him. Curious, Ash checks his Pokédex, though it has no data on Haunter. Ash sends Charmander, but the Pokemon disappears and reappears behind Ash, tapping his shoulder and causing him to freak out. Ash has Charmander use Leer. They both pull off fierce looks, but Charmander suddenly makes a funny face, making Haunter laugh. Ash scolds Charmander, though as it is distracted, Haunter licks him and the fire Pokemon, paralysed by the effects of the lick, begins to shake. As a result, Ash recalls Charmander. Much to Ash's surprise, a Gengar materialises through the floor before smacking Ash with a fan. Ash checks his Pokédex again, but there is still no information. The two resort to a comedy routine which Ash indifferently dismisses. Saddened by their failure to entertain Ash, the two ghost types sink into the floor and disappear. I really think that Dexter not having information on Haunter is pretty strange here. Like, the way that the Pokédex is sort of talked about and used in the anime, it's as if all the Pokemon are already in there, like all the Pokemon info is already in there, and it's given to new trainers, so it sort of helps them on their journey. Where in the games, it sort of seems like you're the one filling out the Pokédex. So yeah, to have Dexter not having information on Haunter and Gengar is a little bit weird. I also thought that Gengar seems ridiculously small here. Like, in the games, it's only supposed to be 5 foot, which, I mean, I've spoken about the weirdness of Game Freak's sizing in the games and how the anime usually gets it right. But here it seems like it's actually smaller than they depict in the games. Like, I don't know if it was just the angles that it was being drawn from, But it really seemed like it was smaller than Ash here, and Ash is only 10, so you would think he wouldn't be 5 foot yet. So, yeah, it really bothered me. Usually Gengar, especially in the anime from other examples, just from memory, I'm pretty sure it's drawn a lot bigger. It was definitely drawn a lot bigger in the opening. I did love that Ash was not even remotely intimidated by Gengar and Haunter's routine. It's a nice little, like, flip. You think that this episode's going to be all about sort of the Ghost Pokemon haunting Ash and his friends, but instead they sort of switch to comedy, and Ash is just, I guess, like, I don't even know how to describe it. He's just sort of annoyed by it. It's a nice little flip on what you would sort of be expecting. Ash and Pikachu jump after them, but miss, and the duo crashes into the wooden floor. The impact causes a chandelier to drop on top of them, knocking them out. Pikachu's electricity lights the chandelier, and the Ghost Pokemon applaud the performance. Gengar taps them as Haunter approaches and pulls Ash and Pikachu's spirits out of their bodies. The pair wake up and are shocked at seeing their bodies on the ground. The Ghost Pokemon then take Ash and Pikachu to the top of the tower. Outside, they admire the view of Lavender Town.
We're down there!
Pika Pika.
What's going on?
Pikachu.
You're saying we're alike now? Oh no! We've been totally separated from our bodies! No way! I don't want to be a ghost yet!
Good lord, Haunter straight up rips the souls out of Pikachu and Ash's bodies. This is so crazy. I remember that this happened, but still seeing it is just an absolute trip. Like, I mean, technically Ash and Pikachu are dead when this happens. Like, their souls have left their bodies. Like, they're dead. That is something you wouldn't expect to see in the Pokemon anime. I also liked the line from Ash once he sort of realizes what's going on. He says, "I don't want to be a ghost yet," which sort of implies that Ash wants to be a ghost someday. Like, he doesn't want to be one yet, but one day he wants to be a ghost, which seems like it's a very Ash thing to say. So Ash sees Misty and Brock waiting and listens as Misty discusses her concern for Ash. Ash speaks as Misty looks behind her, hearing his voice. He then lifts her into the air before dropping her, though Brock luckily catches her. Misty gets up and runs into the tower with Brock behind her, while Ash and Pikachu fly with the Ghost Pokemon. Haunter gets in front of Ash as he goes through Haunter's mouth. When the Pokemon show Ash and Pikachu their toy room, Ash understands that the Ghost Pokemon just wanted new playmates. He then declines their offer to play in order to continue his quest, upsetting the ghosts. Meanwhile, Misty and Brock find Ash and Pikachu's bodies, pulling them out from under the chandelier and trying to wake them up. Ash and Pikachu promptly return to their bodies and wake up, much to the relief of Misty and Brock.
I guess it's time to go back, Pikachu. Hi, Misty.
You're alive!
Pikachu!
Hey, guys. Sorry to worry you.
So while Ash dropping Misty from way up in the air seems like a cool prank, it's also extremely, insanely dangerous. She definitely, the height that he takes her to, she definitely wouldn't have survived if Brock didn't break her fall. I mean, in reality, in Pokemon, she probably would have just survived with a few bumps and bruises, which actually, there's something like that that happens in the next episode. So yeah, that she wouldn't die, but in reality, Ash is dropping her from a ridiculously tall height. We've also got a dub edit here towards sort of the end of this scene. It's when Misty asks Ash to listen to her when she's trying to sort of wake him from his slumber. Her original dialogue was actually, "You can't die on us," which I'm surprised they didn't keep that in, because 4Kids loved any chance to sort of ship Misty and Ash together. And I mean, in general, they must have been loving this episode because there's so many little hints at Misty having feelings for Ash. So I'm sure they were licking their lips at this, trying to push that Misty and Ash love angle. So the group decides to leave the tower the next day, with Ash deciding not to catch the Ghost Pokemon. Brock questions this, and Ash responds that he may have to use humour to battle Sabrina instead. Pikachu points out something, causing Misty and Brock to look behind them. Haunter pulls a face and scares Misty and Brock away. After enjoying their company, Haunter decides to join Ash and Pikachu. Meanwhile, Gengar and Ghastly smile and clap as they watch Team Rocket, who are tied onto the spinning carousel.
Huh?
Well, it seems it was so much fun playing with Ash that Haunter decided to follow along on his Pokemon journey. Maybe together, their comedy act will knock out Sabrina's psychic Pokemon.
So my final personal sort of note here is that it's extremely weird that they have to use the narrator to explain that Haunter has joined Ash. The way they do it here, Haunter sort of comes up to Pikachu and Ash and they have a bit of a laugh, but nothing is said between them. So they have to have the narrator say like, oh, and Haunter has joined Ash and is going to help him battle Sabrina. Like, I would have thought this was something you'd explain in the actual episode rather than being like at the end, attacking on the narrator going, oh yeah, he got the Ghost Pokemon, don't worry about that, he's going to be able to face Sabrina. It's just, yeah, I don't really like that. But before I get into my thoughts on the overall quality of the episode, we have a bit of trivia about Haunter. Haunter is the only Ghost-type Pokemon that Ash has ever used, and Haunter is actually Ash's first unofficial Pokemon. But despite this, Sabrina and Ash both sort of refer to Haunter in the next episode as if he caught Haunter. So yeah, it's a little bit weird that they refer to it as that, but it's definitely an unofficial capture. We never see it actually being caught, and we never see it in a Pokeball, so it's safe to say that Ash never properly owned Haunter, and it would explain why it just sort of causes him a lot of grief in the next episode. And finally, this is one of the rare episodes where Team Rocket does not recite their motto. But with that, we come to the end of the episode, and it's time for my thoughts on the episode. I think this is a pretty fun episode. It's almost entirely focused on, like, the humour, and personally, I actually think that the humour hits the mark most of the time, as I sort of alluded to during my discussion. I don't think it's anything spectacular, but it's just a fun ride from start to finish, and that's okay to have every now and then. Not every episode should be, a 5-star dramatic episode. My biggest gripe would definitely be the weird ending where Haunter scares Misty and Brock and the narrator is forced to explain that this means Haunter is joining Ash. Like I said, this is just extremely clumsy and sort of something that should have been addressed in the episode proper. But, in the scheme of things, it's pretty minor, and yeah, I'd have to say that I did enjoy myself while watching this episode. So to recap the major events here, Ash and his friends arrive at Lavender Town, Ash's Charmander is revealed to know Lear, and then Ash befriends a Haunter who agrees to follow him back to Saffron City. Obviously there were no trainer battles in this episode, so Ash Ketchum's win-loss record stays at 3 wins and 4 losses, and he's still on a 1-loss streak here. And with that, it's time to move on to Pokemail. My question of the episode here is, which town do you wish they'd revisit in the anime? Obviously inspired by the fact that Lavender Town gets sort of screwed over here. And look, I can't honestly remember somewhere that I would really want them to revisit in terms of like it got screwed over in its sort of the way it was shown on screen. In general, with the sort of style that the latest anime series has, I wouldn't mind just in general seeing Ash return to lots of places he's already travelled to and reunite with characters that he previously met that he hasn't had a chance to. Like, imagine if he went back to Saffron City and got to interact with Sabrina and sort of see what was going on with her and the Haunter. I think that would be really cool. So yeah, which towns do you think that Ash should revisit in the anime? But that brings the Tower of Terror to a close, which means it's time for us to jump into our second episode of the week. Our second episode for today is the 24th episode of the Indigo League series, titled Haunter Versus Kadabra. In Japan, the episode was titled exactly the same, just with the Japanese Pokemon names subbed in. This episode aired on September 9, 1997 in Japan, and on October 8, 1998 in the United States. And a little bit of trivia here that I alluded to at the end of my last episode. This episode marks the very first time that the English dub was under 400 days behind the Japanese air dates. This one aired 394 days after its Japanese premiere, so give it a few more episodes and the dub will actually be less than a year behind, which they start catching up rapidly as they sort of go through the syndication period where it's basically one episode per day, and they really speed up, but then after syndication sort of fizzles out, it balloons back out again, but obviously it gets pegged back in over the years to the point where now I think we're like 50-ish days away, like from the Japanese air dates. Obviously, there was extreme examples, like the first episodes for X and Y aired maybe like a week, maybe even less than that after the Japanese airing. So yeah, that's an extreme case. But yeah, for the most part, they've gotten it pretty close now. On this day in Pokemon history for the Japanese air date, we've got Firered and Leafgreen being released in the US in 2004. This remakes that basically righted most of the wrongs of the extremely glitchy and broken and just all-round sort of, prototypical red, blue, and yellow. They set the foundation, but they also had quite a few issues, which Fire and Leaf Green sort of patched over nicely. Not my favorite games ever. I think they're not very flashy, because I think Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the way it sort of made over the Johto region, was a pretty big leap. Same with obviously Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Like, it was in 3D now, so it's obviously a big leap. Fire Red and Leaf Green, less so of a huge sort of makeover, but it's the little game that could. It just patches over all the issues, and it was the definitive way to play through Kanto, obviously, as soon as it released. Is it still the definitive way? I guess it's kind of hard to compare to Let's Go because it's sort of a different format. So yeah, I think it would vary from person to person who you'd ask whether it's the definitive way to play it now. And on this day in Pokemon history for the American air date, on this very same day this episode aired, Japan was actually airing Showdown at the Poke Corral, which was the 65th episode. So it shows how far ahead they were. And Ash is earning his 4th badge here, whereas in that he's actually returning home to Pallet Town. It's his big homecoming. So yeah, it's a pretty big gap at the moment, but as I said, they're slowly reining that in. We also have in 1999 Red and Blue being released in Europe. So yeah, it's a year later that the craze comes to Europe, but yeah, they embraced it all the same. The IMDb rating for this episode is a 7.8, which makes it the lowest rated episode of this Saffron City arc. The screenplay was written by Junki Takagami. This was his 5th episode, and he last wrote Abra and the Psychic Showdown, which was obviously the first episode of his arc, so the beginning and ending were shaped by one man. We also have a director on debut here. We've got Yoshihiro Oda in his very first episode at the helm. So let's see whether he's able to hit it out of the park here. Because we're sort of retreading old ground here, going back to Saffron City, there are absolutely no debuts in this episode. None for the human side, none for the Pokemon side, which it might be the first time that's ever happened. It might have happened once, maybe even twice before. But yeah, it's not something that happens a whole lot, especially early on in a region. And the Who's That Pokemon is Haunter. So with all that said, it's time to jump into the episode summary and discussion for Haunter Versus Kadabra. The episode kicks off with Ash and his friends returning to Saffron City with Haunter in tow. Though Ash is confident, Brock is somewhat afraid of Haunter, while Misty is not, and she even considers Haunter cute. Haunter nudges Misty and licks her face, paralyzing her. Ash scolds it and Haunter cries, but Ash reassures it, the Pokemon quickly perking back up. Ash asks Haunter to help against Sabrina, and it agrees.
Haunter, in Saffron City, there's a trainer named Sabrina who uses psychic Pokemon. Ghost Pokémon are strong against psychic Pokémon, right? Will you help me defeat her? Yes! That marsh badge is as good as mine!
So as is the norm here for multi-part episodes, we get a recap of the previous episode, and the narrator once again pronounces Saffron City weird. Apparently no one told him not to say saffron. It's saffron. Everyone else says saffron, but he's sticking with saffron. We also learn here that apparently Brock is scared of ghost Pokemon in the exact same way Misty is scared of bug Pokemon, which I kind of enjoyed seeing, especially because they make Misty think that it's cute, which is a complete flip on how she perceives bug Pokemon. She hates them, and Ash was actually the one that was thinking it was cute, so it's a nice little role reversal there. Personally, I think it's really weird that Ash never tries to catch Haunter. Like, he never even once brings it up. I would have liked them to, at the very least, attempt to address the fact, even if it was just like a throwaway line where they would explain that Haunter wants to help Ash face Sabrina, but it doesn't want to leave its buddies at the Pokemon Tower. Like, you can obviously infer that, like, through what's going on, but I would have liked if they had at least addressed it during the episode. Ash and his friends return to the Saffron gym. He's ready to go inside, but he notices that his friends and Pikachu don't want to go in based on what happened last time. Ash believes he will win, but Brock thinks Haunter is controlling Ash. However, Haunter appears not to be, laughing continually. Ash brings out Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur, and they prepare to go inside. Everyone returns to the stadium as Ash demands a rematch. Sabrina agrees and sends out Kadabra. Ash attempts to send out Haunter, but Haunter has disappeared. Ash freaks out, losing his confidence. Sabrina orders Ash to send out another Pokemon, reiterating her threat to shrink them all back down into the dollhouse. Ash tries to send out Pikachu, but he backs away to the wall, scared. His other Pokemon then do the same, not wanting to be involved in the battle. Sabrina is intensely angry as Ash decides to back out, running away, and everyone follows him. The exit seals off as the little girl appears from behind, using telekinesis to turn Brock and Misty into dolls. The little girl appears in front of Ash as his Pokemon hide behind him. The man that told them to find the Ghost-type Pokemon before appears and then teleports them out to safety.
Hey, Brock! Misty! Oh! They're dolls!
Now I'm going to turn all of you into dolls.
Hey, take it easy! Please, wait! Hey, where'd you come from?
Sometimes you've got to retreat to win. Teleportation!
So a whole lot going on there. I'm going to first start off with going back to when Ash calls out all of his Pokemon. It's really weird that he does this in the first place. But secondly, why does Pikachu not get to be part of the whole team shot? They have like a sort of heroic sort of pose with Ash and the 3 starters. Why isn't Pikachu included there? Like, it's literally the only other Pokemon. Well, actually, no, yeah, he's got Pidgeotto. So, yeah, I don't know why he doesn't call them all out. He just calls out the starters. It's, again, Ash showing his favoritism for the starters. I really wish we got an explanation for why Haunter just leaves Ash high and dry here. You can probably just infer that it's because it's a bit of a prankster, jokester, and it's kind of, it doesn't really focus on anything. It just wants to have fun. So that's why it just bug it off. But yeah, again, I would have liked an explanation in the episode. Ash just absolutely legging it from the gym battle is golden. Another great moment of humor that comes out of this arc. In general, you wouldn't expect this creepy arc to be as funny as it is, but it's giving me a lot of genuine out loud laughs. On the flip side, Brock and Misty being turned into actual dolls is super creepy. Big fan of that, just from the creepiness aspect. And finally, I found the line from Sabrina's dad where he says, "Sometimes you've got to retreat to win," to be really sort of out of place, especially because that's exactly what Ash was doing. Like, he was running away, but the way that Sabrina's dad delivers it sort of implies that, like, oh, what are you doing? You can't just always rush head in. That's not what he was doing at all. He was trying to leg it when he realized that he was completely outmatched. So Ash and Sabrina's dad appear back in the city and they all drop into a pile atop the man. So they all reappear in the city and they all drop on top of the old man. Ash's Pokemon relax as Ash reflects on how mean Sabrina is. The man mentions that Sabrina was not always mean. Flashbacks reveal Sabrina as a young girl used telekinetic powers on everything, honing her skills at the cost of turning against her parents. The conflict apparently caused her to split into 2 different girls, the older trainer and the lonely little girl. The little girl is actually a doll representing Sabrina before she practiced telekinesis. Ash notices that the picture he showed is the same one they saw in Sabrina's toy box. The man believes that Ash has found out that he is really Sabrina's father, but Ash thinks he's a photographer. Pikachu laughs and the man is somewhat astounded that Ash is this oblivious. Sabrina's father then asks why he does not have a ghost Pokemon, as Ash mentions that Haunter disappeared. Sabrina's father then says that he must find Haunter in order to free his friends.
Though she was very young, Sabrina became completely obsessed with her psychic training. She didn't want to make friends. All she wanted was to be left alone to develop her powers. Her parents tried to help, but Sabrina used her psychic powers to drive them away. The conflict caused Sabrina to split into 2 girls, the strong Pokemon trainer who is always causing trouble, and the lonely little girl who desperately desires to make friends.
We get a nice little bit of backstory here for Sabrina, but there was one moment that I was a little confused about. When we see the montage of Sabrina honing her telekinetic powers, it cuts to a section where she's holding a golf club and she's just jerking it off, which I don't know what's going on here because nothing even remotely psychic related happens while she's rubbing it. She's literally just rubbing the golf club, and then her parents are like, hey, don't do that. And then, yeah, nothing psychic related happens to like the golf club. Like she doesn't bend it with her mind or anything. It was really, really weird. Going from weird to sort of epic is Sabrina imploding a literal house with her telekinetic powers. She literally explodes a house from the inside with her powers, that's much more impressive than anything else we've seen her do telekinetic-wise so far. While we did get quite a lot of answers for her backstory, one thing that still bugs me is why did Sabrina take up Pokemon training? It doesn't really seem like something she'd be into. And like when we face her in like battle during the episodes, she doesn't really seem to really care all that much about battling. It seems more of like an inconvenience to her. So I'm really confused as to why she took up battling and why did she become a gym leader of all things. Also, Ash mistaking Sabrina's dad for a photographer is just a peak dumb Ash moment. Just, classic Ash. We actually have a dub edit when it comes to this though. In the dub, obviously Ash believes that the man is a photographer and that's why he has photos of Sabrina. But in the Japanese version, Ash believes that he's a neighbor of Sabrina's, which I think Ash thinking he's a photographer is a lot more funny. Ash and Pikachu scan the city for Haunter. Meanwhile, Team Rocket is alongside a skyscraper on a window cleaner platform. James readies the fishing net in order to capture Pikachu, but Haunter appears in front of them, scaring Team Rocket and causing them to fall off the platform. Jessie grabs hold as everyone else clings onto her. She can't pull up because they are too heavy. Haunter appears next to Jessie and starts making funny faces, trying to get her to laugh. She tries to resist because if she laughs, she'll end up letting go. Eventually, she cracks, laughing and releasing her grip. Ash and Pikachu notice that Team Rocket have crashed through the sidewalk and Haunter appears nearby. After thanking Haunter for stopping Team Rocket, Ash expresses his desire to go back to the gym, but Haunter does not want to battle. However, Haunter comes up with an idea and sides with Ash again as they return. Haunter comes up with an idea and sides with Ash again as they return to the gym.
I won't crack. The members of Team Rocket have been trained to resist all silliness and to be totally serious.
I really don't see what's so funny.
She's gonna die laughing.
So the summary doesn't really touch on it, but Team Rocket spend quite a lot of time hyping up the literal fishing net as a secret weapon. They hype up a big secret weapon and then James pulls out a net and Meowth is not amused at it. But it's so funny the way Jessie goes along with it. Like usually you'd expect Jessie to be like, what the hell are you doing, James? But here she's like, no, the fishing net, it's a secret weapon. It's a trusty, time-tested method that it's definitely going to be the way we get Pikachu. It's them going back to basics. Screw all the mechs, use a fishing net. Getting more serious though, I think the shot of Team Rocket hanging off the ledge of their window cleaning cart, it perfectly demonstrates my issue with the anime not making the cities feel like cities. The road below them has, like, it's a big, massive, like, think of like a New York City street. That's what's going on here. But the road below has one car on it that isn't moving, by the way, and there's no people. They just really make everything feel so strangely empty here, despite, like, they're caught in two minds. They want to make every city a big, massive metropolis, which I don't really agree with, but cool. Okay, that's the sort of direction you're going with. But then when it comes time to actually make that city feel like a big, bustling city, they sort of skimp out on it, and they don't ever show, like, it being hugely populated. So it's like, it's just a clash of sort of ideas here, and yeah, it makes for something that I guess seems kind of cheap, I guess was probably the best way for me to describe it. Also, a couple questions raised here. Why is Haunter even trying to commit murder on Team Rocket here? It literally abandoned Ash at the gym for this. Like, Why? Why does it want to kill Team Rocket? I guess maybe it remembers them from the Pokemon Tower and it's trying to get revenge. Not really sure what it'd be getting revenge for. They didn't really do anything bad to them, so yeah, I guess Haunter's just a dick. Also, how on earth did Team Rocket survive that fall? There were many stories up. They literally fall through the pavement. They fall from that great of a height. They should be dead, but of course, as I mentioned, with Misty being dropped in the last episode, yes, it's a cartoon, it's an anime, it's no one's going to ever die from that. Also, a weird bit of trivia here. In the Polish dub of the episode, there is a voiceover added for Haunter in the scene where Ash and it talk before heading back to the Saffron gym. So, yeah, the non-English, non-Japanese dubs have had a bit of a track record of randomly adding in Pokemon speaking, well before, I guess, the series sort of started doing that in more cases other than just Meowth. So, meanwhile, Misty and Brock are now dolls and they are sitting on a couch inside the dollhouse, unable to move. They notice that there's another doll nearby and they realize that this is Sabrina's mother. They are shocked as she reveals that she believes that Sabrina is still good. The roof opens as the Sabrina doll looks down upon them. Misty demands a battle and for them to change them back, but she doesn't want them to change as she believes they'll just try to run off again. At that moment, Ash returns and asks for another match. Sabrina sets Misty and Brock on her chair to watch. Misty and Brock protest, but Ash is set on battling. Kadabra comes back out as Ash orders Haunter to go, but it's disappeared yet again. Ash falls to the floor in defeat, but Pikachu steps out to battle even though Ash knows Pikachu is at a disadvantage. Its insistence convinces Ash and the match begins. Pikachu uses Thundershock, but Kadabra teleports to avoid it, and then uses Psybeam on Pikachu. Pikachu gets back up and uses Thunderbolt, hitting Kadabra, but it uses Recover to heal.
And for my Pokemon, I choose Haunter!
Haunter?
Well, where is your Pokemon?
Oh no, not again! Ah!
Why don't you forfeit?
That way I'll have new dolls to play with.
Haunter! Haunter! You promised me! Where'd you go? Please stop hiding! Haunter! Haunter!
Gosh, I've got to address the first bit here of Sabrina's mother being trapped in the dollhouse in doll form. First of all, I want to know how long Sabrina has had her mother trapped there. Like, it feels like she's been trapped there for ages with sort of the way that the father talks about her mother. Sorry, the way that the father talks about Sabrina. Sort of, I guess Sabrina like turned on her parents pretty early on. It doesn't necessarily mean she turned her mother into a doll, but you've got to assume it's been quite a while. But just in general, that is so creepy. And like, how could you possibly believe there's good in someone who has done that to you? Sabrina's mother is a stronger person than I could ever be. But as finally we get a proper gym battle, I guess, starting between Ash and Sabrina, I kind of dislike how we never get like a proper battle with Sabrina. We get it for a brief moment here before some shenanigans take over. But yeah, in general, we don't really see a proper battle. Even in the first episode, it's very brief. And I think this is probably one of the biggest criticisms people have with this series. Battling is massively neglected. And I think it's also one of the major reasons why casuals look at Ash and then they like make memes and jokes that he's a bad trainer. A lot of it is because of in this first season, they just treat battling as an afterthought and it does make Ash look like a bad trainer. So back to the battle here, suddenly Haunter appears in front of Sabrina and laughs. The doll believes that it's unfair to pit two against one, but Sabrina's father reappears and says that Haunter is playing on its own, not battling, so it's not against the rules. Haunter makes funny faces and even pulls out a bomb, exploding it in front of Sabrina. The effort works as Sabrina finally cracks a smile, progressing to hysterical laughter. Sabrina's father seems happy at her breakthrough, but Ash is still unconvinced that he is her father, making him angry. However, he does note that Haunter has helped Sabrina. Ash is still angry that he did not win, but Sabrina's father points to Kadabra rolling on the floor laughing. Since Sabrina and Kadabra are joined telepathically, it's also copying her actions. Sabrina's doll then disappears and drops Kadabra's Pokeball, with Misty and Brock returning to their human forms. Sabrina's father promptly declares Ash the winner. Ash and his friends then leave Saffron City, waving goodbye to Sabrina, her parents, and Haunter, who has decided to stay with Sabrina. Ash glances at his new marsh badge, still doubtful that he deserved it. Brock and Misty reassure him that it was a just victory and make light of the unusual circumstances. The group then makes plans to head for the next gym in Celadon City. Meanwhile, Team Rocket is frozen in the pothole as it is being slowly filled with cement. However, they manage to jump out in time and run down the same direction as Ash and his friends.
Haunter was supposed to beat the psychic Pokemon, and instead it's making friends with Sabrina. I'm gonna be a doll!
Look over there.
I don't get it. It looks like Kadabra's in pain.
It's not in any pain. Kadabra and Sabrina are joined telepathically. Kadabra is rolling with laughter, just like Sabrina.
So my only little note left here is, well, it comes from the line where Ash says, "Do you really think I deserve to get this Marsh badge?" Which, like, Ash, you're going to earn, well, properly earn like 2 or 3 badges total in Kanto. Just take the victory. It's really funny to see him questioning it now when he was basically gifted the badge in Pewter. Cerulean, he was basically gifted, although you can say, like, he was dominating Misty in most of that battle. So you could argue that he was going to win that. So, like, give that a pass. But then Lieutenant Surge, oh no, he does earn Lieutenant Surge, he just has to come back. So yeah, this is only the second time he's really had that happen, but he will get badges in strange circumstances throughout the entire region. So yeah, it is funny to see him sort of questioning it here, but I don't think he questions it a whole lot more. So that does it for the episode discussion. It's time for my thoughts on Haunter versus Kadabra. And much like the previous episode, I do like this episode, but it does come with a but. I just wish we got more proper battling with Sabrina. It honestly feels like we got 30 seconds of battling across the 2 proper battles Ash has. I'm not really counting the one where he just runs away. It's definitely a fun episode in general, but as someone who's familiar with the later seasons of the show, I'm really missing the battle, like the battles and the battling. The writers pretty much go out of their way to downplay battling as much as possible. They do everything they can to avoid, like, proper battling. I enjoy comedy and exploring the wider Pokemon world as much as anyone. In fact, the exploring the wider Pokemon world is probably my favorite aspect of the anime. But battling is a crucial part of the series, and it really bugs me especially when we get a gym episode, and it downplays battling as much as it did here. A lot of major events to recap here. Ash returns to Saffron City to battle Sabrina again. Haunter disappears before the rematch, forcing Ash to forfeit again. Ash finds Haunter, but it disappears again when Ash tries to challenge Sabrina once more. Pikachu battles Sabrina's Kadabra to protect Ash. Ash earns the Marsh badge due to Haunter making Sabrina and Kadabra laugh, thus making the latter unable to battle. Haunter leaves Ash to stay with Sabrina. And finally, Ash learns that the next gym is located in Celadon City and decides to head there. And now we've got a genuine update to Ash Ketchum's win-loss record. It has moved to 4 wins and 5 losses. He's on a 1-win streak. This arc wasn't very kind to Ash's win-loss record. It'll be quite interesting to see if Ash ends Kanto with a positive win-loss record. He has poor performances at pretty much every gym right throughout this region. Like, it's quite rare to see him beat the gym in one shot. So that's always going to be something hard to overcome in the win-loss record, especially when you've got a negative win-loss record. The one thing that I believe might save him is his string of wins at the Pokemon League. That could be enough to turn it around because he has to win a bunch of battles before he even gets into the proper tournament part of the Pokemon League. So that could, if he doesn't, fall into too poor of a record, I think that could turn it around to being a positive for him. But I'm very much expecting his Kanto record to be his worst win-loss record out of any of the seasons. But with that said, it's time for another round of Pokemail. Now I'm going to go for a little bit of a different question here. I want to ask you all if you would have preferred the gym battle or the gym battles in this episode to be proper matches rather than sort of the gimmicky sort of stuff that was going on here. I want to find out whether you guys are as sort of, I guess, frustrated maybe that battles are sort of on the outer as much as they are in Kanto. So yeah, sound off in the YouTube comments of this episode and let me know. Thanks for listening to Who's That Pokemon. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, pretty much any podcast service available. You can also find the show on Twitter at Who's That PKMM Pod to keep up with the latest updates for the show. And I'm on Twitter personally as @SourceMarlo. You can also check out my YouTube channel, WTP Productions. There you'll find all sorts of Pokemon content covering the games, anime, and everything in between. I most recently uploaded a video sort of analysing and trying to find out who the mystery Pallet Town trainers were. So we know that Ash and Gary left Pallet Town together, but there's also 2 other trainers who took the starter Pokemon that Ash wanted, and I tried to see if we could sort of Sherlock Holmes our way to finding who those mystery trainers were. But that's all for this episode. I hope you join me next time as I take a look back at Primeape Goes Bananas and Pokemon Sensation. 2 quite important episodes actually. We'll see Ash pointlessly catch a Primeape in the first episode, while in the second, Ash will already be taking on another gym. How will he handle Erica and the Celadon City gym? You'll have to tune in next time to find out.